Step 10. Check and modify your structure if necessary. A summary of this step. Here you need to check that your provisional structure is correct in the light of what you now know. You need to finalize the big idea of the passage, which will become the big idea of your sermon. And you need to ask, does the structure need to be modified? Does it need to be changed to make it more memorable or more suitable for a sermon? Introduction. Back in step 7, you gave your passage a provisional structure. You subdivided the text, you gave each section a title, and you identified in one sentence what you consider to be the big idea of the passage. But since that step, you've gathered a lot more information. In step 8, you took time to think theologically about the passage. In step 9, you tested your thinking by reading the commentaries. Now, having taken those extra steps, are you still happy with the structure of your passage that you've outlined back in step 7? Or does it need to be changed in the light of what you now know? Is there a simpler, a more memorable way of stating these same ideas? Remember that your structure is going to be the backbone of your sermon. W.E. Sangster once wrote these words: "No sermon is really strong when it is not strong in structure too." And all too often, preachers don't have a clear sense of direction in their preaching and a clear understanding of their passage. But that's absolutely vital. We must be able to show where our ideas come from in the biblical text. John Piper writes this. He writes, "One of the biggest problems I have with younger preachers whom I'm called on to critique is to get them to quote the parts of the text that support the points they are making. It makes me wonder if they've been taught that you should get the drift of a text and then talk in your own words for 30 minutes. The effect of that kind of preaching," he says, "is to leave people groping for the word of God and wondering whether what you said was really in the Bible." So here's the method that we use for this step. First, double check your structure, your subdivisions and subpoints. Do they accurately describe the contents of the biblical text? If not, this is the time to change them. A while back, I was preaching from John chapter 9. And as I looked at it carefully, I realized that the story hangs on 4 important questions in the text. Firstly, who sinned? Secondly, how were your eyes opened? Thirdly, what do you say about Jesus? And then finally, do you believe in the Son of Man? As I looked, I realized that those questions open up each section of the text in John chapter 9, and they give the sermon a sense of direction. Next, finalize the big idea of your passage. That will become the big idea of your preaching, of your sermon. Does your provisional big idea really capture the meaning and the purpose of the whole passage? Or does it just capture the meaning of part of the passage? You see, your big idea must describe all of the verses in the passage, not just some. And is your big idea said as simply as possible so that people can understand it? Again, from my sermon in John chapter 9, in preparation, my big idea went from Jesus heals a blind man to now I see, to seeing Jesus for who he really is. That was the big idea, I thought, that really captured the meaning of the passage. And it became clearer as I worked through the material. Well, finally, are your subpoints stated simply and memorably? If not, this is your opportunity to rework them. So let's make sure that we've asked and answered the most important questions for step 10. Questions to ask ourselves as preachers. Have I checked that my provisional structure is correct in the light of what I now know? Am I able to tell someone in a brief sentence what the passage is about? And then lastly, have I modified the structure? Have I changed the structure to make it more memorable or more suitable for a sermon?